Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the United Arab Emirates, his first to the Gulf countries in West Asia after he took over as Prime Minister last year, has generated a lot of interest. Apart from it being seen as a necessary correction in the foreign policy, as he is the first Prime Minister to visit after Mrs. Indira Gandhi in 1981, it also has symbolic significance for the Prime Minister himself. The two-day visit has seen enthusiastic response from both the kingdom's rulers as well as the people, especially the large Indian diaspora. The focus of the visit has been on wooing investments from the cash-rich kingdom, apart from seeking its cooperation for fighting terrorism, especially emanating from the ISIS. We will discuss the visit today and what has been the outcome and how this visit will influence and help India's policy towards the Gulf countries and West Asia. To discuss this, I have with me Pinak Ranjan Chakravarthy, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Prof.A.K.Pasha, Director, Gulf Studies Program at the JNU, Sriram, Chaulia, Professor and Dean, Jindal School of International Affairs, and one more guest will be joining us soon. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Chakravarthy, why did it take so many years for an Indian Prime Minister to visit UAE? 34 years?
Yes, I think it was Mrs. Indira Gandhi who went there. In fact, I was, as a young diplomat in Saudi Arabia those days in 1981, that Mrs. Gandhi actually visited Saudi Arabia also at that time. Why did it take so much time? I think over the years we have come to accept that these relations had achieved a level of stability that it didn't need anything more to be done to raise it further, etc. Except for those, our interests like chasing criminals or something like that in Dubai, etc. Apart from that, things were generally normal in terms of people going, getting jobs, and as you know how so many Indians work in the Gulf. And the trade that has boomed over the years, you didn't have to do too much. The trade was picking up because of private sector and other agencies that were very active there. And can you imagine, UAE is today our second or third largest trading partner. I mean, Dubai was
without having done anything.
Without actually really pushing, because Indians on both sides were actually, freely engaging in this trade. And, the free trade was on, apart from the fact that Dubai itself and Abu Dhabi have very low levels of taxation and hardly any, I don't think they still have income tax or customs, very high customs duty, because they actually had their policies tailored to make them a service-based industry. So, because they knew that oil and gas would be running out after some time. And so Dubai actually has positioned itself as a service-based education service. For example, they have a large education city.
Right.
In fact, former President Kalam also visited that.
Absolutely. Prof.A.K.Pasha, would you agree with that? There was nothing needed to be done, so it was I know some people call it was neglected, but some people said, okay, everything is going well, so why? Was that the attitude?
Well, there is another perception one can have, and that is it had in fact become one way.
Okay.
The UAE leaders would regularly visit.
That's true.
Right from the Prime Minister, who is the ruler of Dubai.
They like India.
More than that, they had business in India.
That's true.
Because, as you know, Dubai is the hub.
Yeah.
It imports quite a lot from India and it exports to Pakistan, Iran under sanctions, beyond to Central Asia, Africa, so on and so forth. And any tension between India and Pakistan, they would be the first to worry.
Okay.
Because that would not only affect the trade with which they are tied up with the regional hubs, but also the large immigrant population, because tension between the two countries can spill over,
right,
as it had earlier.
There also.
Yes.
Was it the worry that the diaspora there, the Indian diaspora, the Pakistan diaspora can cause problems there?
Yes, they did cause once, and they had to be deported in thousands.
Okay.
And as you know, all these millions of Indians and subcontinent people run the economy and the show.
Absolutely.
And any
disturbance,
any destabilization there would really affect their future. And secondly, after it got independence from the British in 71, it got embroiled in this island dispute with Iran. And then the Iran-Iraq war, and there are a lot of political issues also. And it was seen as more of following Saudi policies. We were not on the same wavelength. So in that way, the political dynamics in the Gulf also did not encourage Indian leaders. Of course, President Pratibha Patil visited, and former presidents and various other leaders, but at the highest level, there was no reason which was seen to propel them to visit and consolidate, which I think is a good step now.
Now, okay. Sriram, Chaulia, would you agree with that? And one more thing is that, so now, why has the need been felt now for the Prime Minister to visit? Do you think that, for him also, this is an important visit? There is a lot of symbolism involved in this visit of his?
I think Mr. Modi sees a greater sense of urgency to tap into the investments, the untapped potential there. We talk about the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority with over 800 billion in assets, right? So he wants to bring that in substantially. So one of the downsides of the neglect of the last 34 years is that we've barely managed to attract any investment worth mentioning. The last I heard was $3 billion. So for us to ramp it up significantly, because Mr. Modi has made Make in India manufacturing, he's talked about housing and how Dubai and Abu Dhabi are going to be key partners for all that. I think that's why he's there, and that's one of the reasons. The other, as you mentioned in your introduction, was the rise of ISIS. A number of Indians have been abducted in that region beyond the UAE. But remember, the UAE is critically involved in the fight against ISIS, but at the same time, very senior members of the UAE monarchy have also been known to have sympathies and have been donating to jihadist causes, although not as much as the Saudi royal family. So all these things make the UAE very important. We have had an Indian Mujahideen cell there over time that has been blunted, but we never know that could make a comeback. The Pakistanis have tried to use the UAE as a kind of an offshore base from which to mount anti-India terror attacks and plan these things. So all these factors make the UAE valuable right now, I think. And I don't think we could have afforded few more years. I like the Prime Minister's phrase when he said, I feel a sense of shame that after, there's so many flights from Delhi to Abu Dhabi, but it took 34 years for a head of government to land there.
Okay, I mean, Mr. Chakravarthy, investments, what kind of investments, why is it, do you agree with Sriram that there has not been as much investment as it should have been?
Well, if you look at the sovereign wealth funds in these countries, they are oil-rich, surplus wealth countries.
$800 billion.
Well, that's only in UAE. Look, let's take Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar. If you combine all of them, there are actually trillions of dollars waiting there. And much of that has been invested in the West.
Right.
Because of their close association and security partnership with the West. But today, with Iran coming back after the Iran nuclear deal into the game, so to speak, there are now second worries, etc. And moreover, if you look at the economic aspect, now China and India will grow at 7-8%. Where are the other growth markets where to invest? And where is the need for these investments? It is in India, basically, in the investments. Yes, we haven't wooed them to the extent that we should have to get these investments here. But today, the opportunity is ripe. And I think the visit that way is very well timed. And I think there is no doubt that Prime Minister Modi will be targeting investments. And the other major thing that he will be actually talking about, in my view, is security. Because, but if you want, then why security, I can explain. Please. And that is because we have so many people working there, earning their livelihood. If any catastrophic event takes place, you can imagine the kind of displacement that will happen and the impact on the economy. So I think the next big thing that will happen between these two countries, to the extent it is possible, because there are other influences at work, is the ramping up of our security cooperation.
Mr. Pasha, what is the security cooperation? And when Prime Minister Modi yesterday also during his talks with the Crown Prince, mentioned about the aspect of terrorism, and what is the concern and what kind of a cooperation do you expect to happen?
There are two things. One is we have signed this bilateral extradition treaty with UAE that has enabled India to get some of the...
When did this happen, this extradition treaty?
Yeah, L.K. Advani, when he was Home Minister,
Okay.
he went
So it's been
and
there for
signed.
the last more than 10 years?
Yes, that is on place. We had presented our list, including Dawood Ibrahim, but immediately we were surprised to get a list from the UAE also. And they equally presented the same number, about 30 or 32.
Who were supposed to be in India?
Yes, who
And
are
it's wanted
supposed
by
to,
them?
Yes, for criminal activities ranging from murder to this and
Those
that.
were basically Indian nationals.
Indian nationals.
nationals whom they wanted to be deported from India. This is one.
Okay.
Number two, the threat of extremist groups is growing in West Asia, as you know.
Yes.
And the UAE authorities have taken a very strong position against the Ikhwan in UAE and in Yemen and Egypt. And some of these groups are linked to the IS and Jabhat al-Nusra, against whom they are either supplying weapons, money, so on and so forth. They feel that as they are attacking some Shia groups in Saudi Arabia, they might target the Shias in UAE.
Okay.
Because the number there and Indian people are also there. The older ones, Bohras, are also in large number who are involved in trade, so on and so forth. So this could be a meeting point.
No, but what about the role of UAE? Sriram, Chaulia thinks that they have been even funding and financing these jihadi groups. Do you agree with that?
Yes, they have been funding.
UAE.
UAE.
And so
UAE has been supplying weapons to at least 12 groups in Syria fighting against the Assad regime.
Right.
They have been funding groups in Libya, which are now part of Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, and so on and so forth. They sent their planes to bomb one group which they don't like in Libya. And they have been very active in Yemen also. All of this shows their new concern after the Arab Spring, which along with Saudi Arabia, they wanted to contain next door in Bahrain and Egypt and so on and so forth. So in that way, the UAE thinks that like the Saudis, they're also scared of so-called Iranian interference right across the board in the entire West Asian region.
So, I mean, if in such a situation, what do you expect? What would India want from them? What would India expect from the UAE?
They want any of these kind of attacks on Indians, either in UAE or in neighboring places, to be coordinated so that these kidnappings, hostages taking, which we witnessed in Iraq and Libya and various other places, could be avoided because of the spillover on Indian domestic politics and also bilateral relations. So in that way, coordination with the UAE would enable Indian security forces to be on the alert.
Okay. We are now joined in by Sachidananda Murthy, resident editor of the Week magazine. Welcome, Sachi. Sachi, when you look at this visit
Girish.
of the Prime Minister, do you see a symbolism? And one more thing is that, this visit was largely shrouded in secrecy. It was only, very few days back that it was announced that he is going there. Why was that kind of a secrecy maintained as far as this visit is concerned?
No, Girish, this is also a part of the way UAE deals with these bilateral visits. They don't confirm till the last minute. It's not planned very much in ahead. Because I remember I'd gone with the then President Dr. Abdul Kalam to UAE. So again, though it was a presidential visit, it took only just 2 weeks before it was finally confirmed. And Dr. Kalam was informed that then the President, Sheikh Zayed, will be there to receive him. But when we actually landed in Abu Dhabi, there were media reports that Sheikh Zayed had already gone out of the country for some medical treatment. So, but then our Foreign Office had been kept in the dark about that. So they take their own time in confirming things and all that. And then once they say yes, come, they go out of the way to, that's what they did to Dr. Kalam also. the entire cabinet turned up to receive him, and he was accompanied by the crown prince everywhere. So this is in their style. They don't do much advance announcements, and they would like to deal with in secrecy. They had made a request that don't announce it in advance.
Okay, that's interesting. That's an
So
interesting.
that way, and then as you know, there were reports that immediately the foreign secretary and Secretary West rushed to Abu Dhabi, held talks and worked out the framework of the thing. Even the SPG team, advanced team, could not go before the announcement.
Okay, that's interesting. The way these people they function, Mr. Chakravarthy.
The way they run that diplomacy is a little different from ours. Yeah.
Mr. Chakravarthy.
Yes, I agree with Sachi, because on that visit I was also there. I was then chief of protocol. I think Sachi will remember that we were together on that flight. Yes, this is how they operate, because it is not a set bureaucratic democratic system. It is one has to realize that it is a bit whimsical at times, to use a word like that. So everything comes.
Not a very diplomatic word.
Well, not a very diplomatic word, but everything comes from the top, and sometimes there are pressures, pulls, etc., and all that. And then only when the signal comes from the top, that everybody gets into action. So
and you know, from what we have witnessed in the last 24 hours or more, after the Prime Minister landed there, we have seen the kind of the enthusiasm, the kind of
then the floodgates open up.
Floodgates have been opened up completely. So Sriram, what is going to be the impact of this visit of the Prime Minister to UAE, as far as other West Asian countries are concerned? How is it going to affect the kind of policy of India towards these countries, and how the other countries look at the India-UAE relationship?
Yeah, Iran is also strategically very close to us. And as Professor Pasha mentioned, they are at loggerheads with the Gulf Cooperation Council members, including UAE. Recently, the GCC Sunni monarchies claimed that they are now okay with the Iran nuclear deal, and when John Kerry visited. But on the ground, if you see, the war in Yemen is stretching out, and in fact, the Houthi rebels who are close to Iran have even come out saying that they'll bring out their biggest strategic weapon to counter the Saudi imperialism in Yemen, which again hints at an increased involvement of Iran in that conflict. So it doesn't look like the deal is actually going to reduce the regional tensions. So India, in a way, we are doing a tightrope there, because on the one hand, we will be pressured always, saying, for example, UAE is saying they'll step up the oil shipments if we want.
Right.
We want to buy more. In a way, in the past also, the Americans have tried to use Saudi and Kuwait and some of these other countries to get us to drop the Iranian option and to just buy oil from them. So we have tried to balance it out. And because Iran is far more important to us geopolitically as well, it's not just for oil. So I think we're going to explain that Iran remains a partner. And we will hope that the fact that we're also getting closer to Israel. Some people have said that Mr. Modi has scheduled these visits to UAE and Saudi to try and counterbalance the fact that he's also going on this historic first ever trip to Israel later. So I think Iran, Israel and UAE sound like, the three cannot mingle in the same, equation. But nonetheless, I think we have been doing that. We have this multi-vectoral foreign policy. And given the assets we have in the UAE, I'm confident that they will see that there is a value to us irrespective of our relationships with Iran and Israel.
Professor Pasha?
Yeah.
As far as this is concerned, how India will have to do this tightrope balancing act. Do you think it's, first of all, a tightrope balancing act? And this visit of the PM, establishing this kind of a relationship with the UAE, and then how the other countries will look at this relationship?
Well,
and what will be the impact of and India's own policy towards the other nations around it?
Well, the most important country in my perception in the Gulf, other than Iran, is Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And our relations with Saudi Arabia have been improving gradually. When the Saudi king came here the last king, Abdullah, for the Republic Day, and then Manmohan Singh went there, and warming up is going on there. But the Saudis have become proactive, as you know, in Bahrain, in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and so on and so forth. And part of the problem...
What is the equation between Saudi Arabia and UAE?
Well, Saudi Arabia has tremendous influence. There's no
On the
doubt,
UAE.
other than the United States, there's no doubt that the UAE leaders listen to Riyadh much more closely than any other country. So they have considerable clout. But at the same time, I must say, the UAE leaders are pragmatic. In the sense, some time back, the Saudi leaders wanted the island dispute with Iran to be referred to the Security Council, but they flatly refused. So there is some strategic autonomy which the UAE leaders have carved out for themselves. But in fact, this visit, if it had been clubbed with Saudi Arabia, that would have been
Exactly.
very
Yeah,
good.
there have been a lot of
The fallout would have been much better, both regionally and domestically. But for some reason, I think the Saudis appear to be busy with the regional flare-ups and especially Syria. It is at a turning point there with Russians and Iranians and Americans coordinating for some peace, quid pro quo in Syria and in Yemen. Right. So they are busy at the diplomatic parlance. But nevertheless, I think this is a major breakthrough in the Gulf, especially after the nuclear deal, because we were doing a very tight balancing act between Iran under sanctions and freewheeling with the Gulf Cooperation Council members. Now I think our policies should be much more relaxed. In the sense, we can have business with both.
And we have more choice now.
Yeah.
With
multiple choices.
Multiple choices which we have. Yes, Sachi, you wanted to react?
No, I just want to say that, normally these countries, Arab countries, don't like their visitors to club too many countries. Saudi Arabia always insists on standalone visits. Similarly, UAE wants leaders who come on standalone visits. So there is a lot of sensitivity attached to that you have to pay extra. You're just not one more pit stop on your, Prime Minister Modi has said, being a Gujarati, he likes to squeeze a lot out of each trip by adding 2-3 countries. But I think here he was advised, and he was rightly advised, that only focus on UAE now. Next time focus only on Saudi Arabia. Another time focus only on Oman or Qatar. Like that. I think that's the best way to deal, because these are very, very touchy people. So I think what he has done is, by giving full attention on this trip, it was not just that on his way to UN, you could have done it in September on his way to New York and all that, but giving them undivided attention. And also is sending a strong message to Pakistan, because one of the things is UAE was always alert to the sensitivities of Pakistan. So maybe it had not encouraged Indian prime ministers to visit earlier also. That I think Mr. Chakravarthy will be able to throw more light on that.
Mr. Chakravarthy?
Well, I look at it in a sense that India is managing a triangle of relationships here. At one corner or one angle is Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries, the GCC countries. Another angle occupied by Iran, and the third angle is Israel. I think this is a relationship that India will have to manage, and there is a lot of balancing to be done. All these relationships are important from India's point of view. And fortunately for us, I think it is not being held against us in any way. Although during the period of sanctions, we did come under pressure and we did compromise on, let's say, the offtake of oil, etc., from Iran. But now that we are freed from those sanctions, the UN sanctions, there is no, Iran is back, and we have geopolitical interests in Iran, particularly in relation to Afghanistan, and our access to Afghanistan and the Central Asian countries through the port of Chabahar, for example. Now, I think what Mr. Modi or Prime Minister Modi is trying to do is to capture all these balancing positions one by one, in the sense that UAE first. Now, let us also look at UAE, because UAE may defer to the elder brother Saudi Arabia issues, but they don't refer on their pragmatism and economy. They don't defer to their rather, Wahhabi, kind of promotion and propagation. I don't think the
UAE... So they are pragmatic when it comes to it.
They are pragmatic, but I agree that there is a Pakistan angle to all this. Let us not forget that the UAE military and air force was actually run by the Pakistanis at one time.
Right.
Not today, but at one time. And they have pretty close relationship on that front. And if you remember, during the civil war in Yemen, Saudi Arabia actually appealed to Pakistan to provide troops, etc., which Pakistan, of course, refused later because of different reasons, and we need not go into that here. So there is an element of balancing for India, but India is in a good position because we do have all three angles covered in that sense, in terms of our relationship.
Okay, Prof.A.K.Pasha, we are get 8% of the Indian oil imports come from UAE. Today, the Crown Prince, the UAE leaders have said that, how much ever you want oil from us, we will give it to you. Why is it that all these years we have it's just been 8%? Is it because we have spread the, our basket? We didn't want to rely on one country. Is that the reason?
Definitely.
And do you think now it will go up? Will it have any benefit?
No, for the last couple of years, we have been trying to diversify, going as far as Russia.
And now with Iran back in the trade.
Now that Iran will be back as one of the major suppliers to India, the commitment from UAE, I think, is important. Although the largest supplier has been Saudi Arabia and this, and Iraq and like that Kuwait and so on and so forth. But what is important is we need to have long-term contacts. We have been making commercial arrangements, buyer and seller kind of thing. If there is long-term commitment like Saudi Arabia, that will assure us of supplies because of the turmoil which might happen anytime there. Another point I wanted to add here is, given the negative image of the Prime Minister because of his past in Gujarat and so on and so forth, if you recall, the newspapers, Arabic especially, this visit marks a breakthrough. The acceptance of a Prime Minister who was controversial previously, and this will help us build bridges in other Arab Muslim countries.
That's exactly the point.
Very important.
And one very quick point I want you to answer before I go to Sriram. How is this visit going to help the Indian diaspora there? In what way is it going to help? Is it going to make any difference to their lives, to their jobs?
Not really. In the sense, 80% of them are not white-collar jobs. And apart from Qatar and Oman, the UAE has been dragging its feet as far as legal options for Indians are concerned. I mean, we need to have better facilities and legal support for the Indian community on various issues. That would be better. But unfortunately, that is not the priority now.
That's okay. Sriram, very quickly.
The diaspora, I think, is now dual in nature. We have a growing segment of professionals who are white collar or even can be called gold collar. But of course, the bulk of them are Malayalis and Tamils,
blue
collar workers exploited in working very harsh conditions. And we have raised these issues. I think Prime Minister's visit would have also raised the issue, because think of it, 42% of UAE's workforce comprise Indians.
Absolutely.
So they will have to, give us greater respect and better conditions.
Okay, Sachi, very quick last words to you. You think the diaspora, the large diaspora is going to be helped in any way?
Yeah, it will help in a big way. And also look at him, he went and visited a workers' colony where Indians live and work. He tried to understand their problems. And of course, some of the solutions will come from our own government through the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs and other ministries and all that. But he would also sensitize the rulers of Abu Dhabi and later the ruler of Dubai about what should be done for the Indian diaspora. So it's a big move forward for the Indian diaspora working in that region.
Okay. I think on that note, we need to end. This visit, as all my guests say, has been important, historic. How much it will help the country, we'll have to wait and watch and see. But the kind of signals which have emanated in the last 2 days, the Prime Minister has been there, has been very positive. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time tomorrow.